The biggest risk on this continent is not investing in the youth. That's the biggest risk. And so what we have to do is take our financing, our financial ecosystem, and make sure that we use them to support our youth. I feel sad when I see young people going to Mediterranean. For where? I don't think the hope and aspirations of Africa's youth is not in the United States, it's not in Canada, it's not in UK, it's not in Asia, it's not in Latin America. It must be in an Africa growing well and able to support the youth. And that's why we at the African Development Bank have launched what's called Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Banks. Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Banks are new financial institutions, folks. These are not any other type of institutions. They will create a new financial ecosystem around the businesses of the youth. And Mr. President, they will support them in the life cycle of their businesses. We need to create on this continent youth-based wealth. When people talk about malaria, I don't like the word poverty at all. Why must we be the museum of poverty in the world? We should get poverty out of our mindset. We need to create a wealthy continent, and that wealth must start with creating wealth for our youth. We must create youth-based wealth on our continent. And Mr. President, I just want to commend you for what you said you were doing about housing. I come into this morning, I saw the president driving in with, your electric vehicle. And also, he's a very innovative president, very creative president, very determined president. When he was telling me about the issue of housing, I told the president, I said, Mr. President, Kenya, when it's long distance racing, Kenyans will win gold, silver, and bronze together. But when it comes to slums, I told Mr. President, why do we have Kibera slum? Why do we have all these slums? And people say, no, we have to upgrade the slum. No, there's no five-star slum. A slum is a slum. And so I want to commend the president for his bold decision to do that. And I say that because it will create jobs, it will support the young people, it will help you to have an economy that's growing well, equitably, and can actually grow faster. So well done, Mr. President. Thank you.
That we are realistic about where countries are. It's also important for us to say two things. Even as we push all buttons to make sure that we have green growth and industrialization and manufacturing, we must also be cognizant of where we are at the moment in terms of development relative to where others are, and how they got where they got using the wrong sources of fuel. And should we repeat the mistake without the rest of the world keeping their promise is the only option left. So the rest of the world must live up to the commitments, whether it is the SDRs, whether it is the loss and damage, whether it is what was committed in Paris. These are commitments that must be kept, number one. Number two, we must also invest in green energy. Today, only 1% of resources invested in green energy is invested in Africa. So it needs to be scaled up, in our estimate, to 10% by 2028 and to 40% by 2050. It is the only way we are going to decarbonize global growth. So these are very important aspects as we discuss the carbon transition. And to agree with my brother that migration is fueled heavily by effects of climate change. They cause instability, they cause conflict, they cause poverty, making people move from where they are. We need greater resilience. We need to fund. We need to make sure that countries have the resources to stabilize, to fund resilience. And that is why financing becomes a very big component of the conversation. And when we talk about financing, we're not talking just about loans, as my brother has said. And especially if we are getting loans 5 times more expensively than others. And that's why the conversation around financing is very important. And that's why I'm very happy that this summit of young people is saying, let's have a conversation about a green bank, where new ideas, new concepts, new shareholders will have a conversation.
Look, we are looking for resources on how we're going to deal with this global problem. But there's not a whole lot of money hanging around. One instrument, one vehicle that can have a potential transmitting impact in solving this problem is the special loan rights that the IMF had. The IMF issued $650 billion of special loan rights. Africa got $33 billion of that. And you, our heads of state, have been asking for those that received it in the developed countries, wealthy countries, and donated it to rechannel it towards Africa. You asked for $100 billion of that to be done. Now, there have been some challenges with that, because we have to make sure that these special drawing rights, and I'm saying this because I want to enlist you as young people in support of this agenda. There are technical issues that have to be solved to make sure that those that give us the SDRs are not going to lose the SDRs. It's a reserve asset that you're not going to lose. We've solved that problem now. The African Development Bank again took the lead globally on this issue, together with the Inter-American Development Bank. We came up with a framework that every single dollar of SDR will be leveraged. You can do it 4 to 5 times. So that will complement what the IMF is already doing. So if we were to get $20 billion, and that could easily become $100 billion for Africa. And why is it globally that we cannot have special drawing rights of $500 billion issued? It will raise $2.5 trillion. Right there, right? Yes. We need about $3 trillion to deal with all these issues. We can do that, but it needs leadership. So I want to ask, I want to request that you, as Mr. President, continue to help us with other leaders in making this case. Those that hold the SDRs lose nothing. You cannot lose it. Look, as African Development Bank, we're a AAA rated financial institution. You cannot lose money. So you're not going to lose your money. And it costs you nothing, but it will allow us to solve a problem. So for this summit, Mr. President, I'm hoping that a key outcome for us will be to push this agenda of the special drawing rights channeling to Africa through the African Development Bank, so we can leverage the resources that we need. Money is important. We can talk all we want, but if we don't have the financing, we can't solve the problem. And I think the special drawing rights is just a way to do that. We've got 425 million Africans that are between the age of 15 and 35. Well, that means that this is the best asset that Africa has. Your ideas, your creativity, your perspectives, your innovations, your entrepreneurship capacity is what we need to drive the economic growth. That's the question you ask about economic growth and development. It has to be inclusive, but you can't do it without, you have to do it with. And so the president said it, and I agree with them. You are not bystanders. You should be decision makers. Look, if you run a corporation, the most important part of your corporation are your shareholders, the equity holders in the company, right? Now, the youth are the biggest equity holders on this continent. And therefore, when we talk about economic development, economic policies, about programs and financing, we have to put the youth primarily at the center of everything that we do. Second, it's not just about talking about the youth, Mr. President. It's about delivering for them. I go across so many countries and I hear people say, well, you know, we are trying to empower the youth. And I'm sorry, I'm not one of those that actually believe in that word empowerment, the way they say it. Because rarely do I find young people that come to me and say, I've been empowered. So it seems to me that those that are talking empowerment probably are empowering themselves for political reasons. for the youth. The youth need investment, period. They need a lot of finance.